Well, welcome to everybody who's watching this or listening to this on our podcast. We hope this is a conversation that will be meaningful to you. Over the month of October, First United Methodist Church, many of our groups and members have been participating in a study of the book called Holy Love by Dr. Steve Harper. It's a book about a biblical theology for human sexuality. We've been talking about what it means to be a welcoming and affirming church for all people. And to supplement that conversation, we have been having some really important conversations with folks that mean something to us, including the three who you see before you now, who are part of us, have been part of the First Church family. So why don't I allow them to introduce themselves to you today? Who'd like to go first?
I guess I'll go first.
Go ahead.
My name is Elizabeth Preston-Hughes. I am a lifelong Methodist. I grew up going to First Church downtown. Had my first Sunday school classes in the building that's immediately across from Dr. Phillips. I guess it was called the Wesley Building.
That's right.
Have very fond memories of that. And then I went from age 12 all the way to 18 as a very active member of NYF. Had Vicki Rourke as our youth leader. A lady who worked at First Church for 50 years, Carolyn Langston, was a very good friend of my mother's and of mine. And so she walked me into Fellowship Hall that very first Sunday night where pizza was on the menu for dinner. I remember that like it was yesterday. And from that moment forward, I experienced 6 years of never-ending love, acceptance, fun, adventure, many a choir trip during those 6 years with David Patton. Yeah. Just a time of my life that has never, ever been duplicated. And I've had some really good faith experiences, but those 6 years at First United Methodist Church downtown will just always take up tremendous real estate in my heart. So now fast forward, I'm 50, married to an amazing gal named Stephanie Preston-Hughes, who has involved herself with Reformation Project and some other activities involved with First Church. Shelley Denmark is still doing some work with Stephanie. I'm still a Methodist. I go to College Park Methodist in College Park, Orlando. And just happy to be a part of this call.
Thank you. Joe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, hello, my name is Joe Nisbett, and I grew up at First United Methodist Church of Orlando, and I went there until I went to school at Florida State in around 2010. So I was there for like the first 18 years of my life, and I was confirmed and baptized there, and I had a lot of friends from there. We went on mission trips and stuff like that. And then since I moved away, I never really found a new congregation. So FUMCO will always be kind of my home church to me. And so I was really honored to be invited to speak about this topic. It feels important. It feels like I could speak of my experience. So I'm really glad to be here. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Michael.
First Methodist Orlando started my career in music. I was a little kid, and we were at First Methodist Fort Myers. And we came up to that church for a convention at Rollins College. And we went to an organ concert at First Methodist, and it thrilled me to the core. And that was the beginning of my career in church music. And, obviously, Dad was hired at First Methodist, and I grew up at First Methodist, and everybody knows I sat right next to the console next to Linda. And I'm still working with Linda to this day. Fantastic mentor and teacher. First Methodist was just the lighthouse and the solid rock that shaped my faith formation and showed me who I really am and who I am as a musician as well. And, you know, and I've always felt anytime the church has called me, I will run there and help them. And, you know, it's been a very important part of my life. I mean, to the extent that I joined the company that rebuilt the organ, you know,
Wow.
and I still work on that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Michael. Well, the conversation that you've alluded to that we're having at the church and that we're going to have together is around human sexuality and identity and orientation. And I wondered if each of you could share a little bit about your own stories of kind of when and how you came to awareness and acceptance of your sexual identity, orientation, and if First Church, you know, was supportive of that or not, or was part of the conversation at all for you or part of the processing. Just love to hear whatever you have to share about that.
This was interesting for me. Growing up, I didn't know there was a difference. I'm literally, because you think about it, men always were together and women were always together and they were always separate. And I thought that, I've never told anybody this, I thought that men and women came together just to have families. But I figured that they had lovers on the side. And for me, I didn't understand when I was told there was something different about it. But I always knew at First Methodist, I always knew that I was accepted. I always knew I was different, to say. I didn't understand why, but there's other reasons there. But I was always supported. And any time that I had any kind of questions, I could go to somebody and ask them. And, you know, for me, First Methodist was very supportive. Yeah, every once in a while I heard like a random person say, "Oh, those people." And I didn't understand, like, what do you mean those people? We're all people. We're all, you know, we're all God's children. The night of Pulse, my phone started erupting. And it was, you know, parishioners at my church, but it was also parishioners at First Methodist that were calling me to find out where I was, to make sure that I was okay, or to say, "We need you down here now to come to help." You know, and I was annoyed, and I just turned my phone off because I didn't know what was going on, because I had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was interesting in that moment to realize the church needed me and wanted me to be there to help, just to, you know, pass out donuts or do something, anything in that moment. And the time the church needed people, it was, and they also were calling to make sure that I was okay.
Yeah.
That meant a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So Elizabeth, you were starting to jump in. So let's pick up with you.
Yeah, thank you, Vance. Michael gave a lot of great segue options for me. That was perfect person to start. So, you know, when I was in MYF, I just felt very comfortable there with all the folks, because I went to Lake Highland. I was the only one in our group who went to Lake Highland, and Lake Highland was, you know, nothing like it is today. I don't even know if I could get into Lake Highland today. In fact, I'm pretty certain I couldn't. But the point I was trying to make is, you know, the kids I was in NYF with were at Howard, Boone, you know, normal schools. And so it was really an opportunity for me to be with real people. who I felt I really connected with. Now, did I realize that it was different because I was different? No, no, no. I just thought it was awesome. And, you know, Sundays and Wednesdays were the two best days of the week for me because that had something to do with First United Methodist Church Orlando. I did not know I was gay. It was probably a case where everyone else who was an adult knew I was, but I was the last one to know. That kind of happens a lot. So you fast forward to when I'm out of college. I did go to an all-girls summer camp and an all-women's college. Those could have been indicators, but alas, they were not. So I'm out of college. I'm working at Disney, not because of the nicely robust and diversified workforce, but mostly because my mother said, you're going to get a job. Why don't you try getting a job at Disney? And that's where I got a job. And that is where I realized I, you know, was attracted to women. So the question was, you know, was the Methodist Church, First United Methodist Church, Orlando in general supportive? You bet they were. But the support came way later. It came as recently as 3 to 4 years ago when I became active at College Park United Methodist Church. Merrill Fraley gave me the gift and opportunity of being lay leader. I was able to come back and sit in the sanctuary at First Methodist downtown when Bob was speaking to the congregation. And so the support was so vital and so substantial. It just was at a very different stage of my life. But perhaps it was not any less significant just because I was married and more adult. It came really at the best time because my faith journey is the strongest now that it has ever been. That strength is not to be confused with perfection. My path is very, very much a roller coaster, but as I'm not sure, I think it's Henry Nouwen who says that doubt is like ants in the pants of faith that keeps it moving. And so, you know, I am a seeker and a traveler. Every now and then I'm a wanderer. But the one thing that has been consistent is my love of the Methodist Church. No matter what church it is, no matter what pocket of the country it's in, I am Methodist all the way. And the bedrock of that is First United Methodist Church Orlando, period, end of sentence.
Wow, thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, how about you?
Yeah, thank you. I think I had a little bit of a different experience, or at least where I'm presently at feels a little bit different than you know, the other guests here today. I definitely struggled with being in denial. So I guess first of all, I am cisgender gay male, and I've been happily in a relationship for the past 7 years with, you know, the love of my life, and I'm really appreciative of that. But you know, back when I was 12, 13, 14 in middle school and high school, I didn't understand myself. I was really in denial about it. Actually, I do feel sort of like how Michael felt like everybody must feel what this feels like. I kind of thought, oh, like, you know, all guys know that other guys are attractive. Everyone's just kind of lying. It's like this whole big joke that, you know, I don't really get it, but, you know, whatever. Yeah, that's dumb. Guys are gross. And I really had a tough time dealing through the reconciliation with myself that I'm not straight, that I'm not gonna have the wife and the kids that I had pictured, or that had been told to me that it was, you know, part of everyone's future was that you're gonna have a house and a white picket fence and a wife and 2 kids, and you know, that's what boys do, and girls get a husband. And that was really confusing. It took a really long time for me to get through that. It definitely gave me depression, suicidal thoughts, anxiety, leading to abusing drugs and alcohol, like, you know, not too much more than a normal high schooler, but I can definitely see now how much pain I was in and how hurtful it was. And I want to say, though, I'm not pinning that on the church or, you know, what individuals in the church did. I think that there's systemic and institutional homophobia in the entire, Western society, and Christianity is a huge part of that. And the Methodist Church and stands within that. There's that context that the church is in the community, and it's kind of holding on to those values and some of those things. So I had a really tough time coming to grips with it, and I feel like I just didn't understand myself. And so I did feel like all the individuals within the church and the people around me, I always had so many friends, so many people to talk to, so many people to ask for help. But it's weird when, you're not even really sure what you need help with.
Mhm.
That was really confusing. And I think the one role that did get played through the church, I think it's just culturally. I don't think it's about any individuals or policies or anything like that, but just that there's a cultural heteronormativity where I didn't see gay role models, or I didn't see myself in kind of these ideal lives that the other people were talking about, or that God was inviting me to lead. And we can go into depth about all of these different topics, but I will say, I think what's important to me has been having a personal relationship with God. And I think that the problems that I've had with my own identity and feeling like that there wasn't a support, like I don't remember the conversation, but I was told, being gay is a sin. And it was kind of a joke, in youth group on late nights and stuff like that, just boys just being boys. I don't attribute it to the church or to the community or the individuals at the church, but just culturally it's kind of a joke, like, oh, making fun of a gay person, or something like that. um and so I think that the church today, um my relationship to it has been shifted to where I kind of stepped away from those more, strictly biblical views that I found harmful and hurtful. I didn't see myself in there, and it made me take a step away from that and towards a more personal relationship to God that I enjoyed today. So I think that something that I think is really interesting is that your sexuality will change your faith. And when you know God and the lessons that Jesus gives us, it wasn't any of that other stuff. It was about that personal relationship with God and experiencing that God loves you, and trying to share that and represent that in yourself and in your life. So I know that's probably really heavy, but that's kind of where I'm presently at in my experience with the church and with my sexuality. And I'm really grateful to kind of be out of that dark spot and come out and have a completely supportive family, supportive friends. And I know I feel the love from everyone from all the different directions. But that was my experience.
Joe, I'm glad you're out of that dark space too. And thankful for your sharing that. Can I follow up with two things you said actually, and then if I get Michael and Elizabeth maybe to jump in on these. You introduced the term heteronormative. I find that most folks who are sort of think heteronormatively don't know what the term heteronormative is, and wondered if you could define it to help people understand what it means and why it's an issue.
Yeah, thank you for asking me that. I have to say that I'm still learning a lot myself, and I wish I could give you a perfect dictionary definition. I don't think I have that for you. To me, heteronormativity is the idea that that there's something more normal about heterosexual relationships between cisgender people, like a biological male and a biological female having the sacred marriage, and that the idea that that's more normal, or that anything other than that is not normal, or that something's wrong with something other than that.
heteronormativity, that's how you pronounce it, it's just such a given in society that people don't even think about it. You know, and it was so weird growing up. I didn't think about it as I never thought about it. But now as I'm older, heteronormity is obviously a serious bias in the community. I remember when I came out to my choir at Oakland Presbyterian Church, you know, one alto threw up her arms and she said, "Finally." You know, I was like, oh, okay. I guess it was that obvious. But, I mean, you know, it's so ingrained that you have to hide exactly how God made you. And that's just that is such a shame. That is not normal. That should not be how we live and how the church should perceive people. We should be allowed to be exactly who we are. You know, I mean, I guess that's my take on that real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as it's been described to me that when we describe one person or one way of being as normal, then that makes anything other than that abnormal,
Right.
and thus not okay. And that I've had heteronormal as things like, you know, if I have a child, my first assumption is that child will be born straight, and because that we operate out of that kind of that baseline heteronormativity, if that's the right way to say it, but that becomes an upward climb for folk.
Well, and I think the weird thing there is, even within that scope of heteronormative, what on earth is heteronormative? I mean, every family is different. So, I mean, this preconceived notion, this 2.5 child family unit that probably maybe existed a couple hundred times, and that's about it.
Right.
Well, Elizabeth, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was about to say that I'm grateful for an iDevice that can quickly pull up a definition when needed.
Yeah.
I'm not someone who uses a lot of terms, and that's probably to my detriment. I honestly don't know if I'm as credible because I just don't use terms. So here's this term, and I looked it up because thank goodness Vance didn't say, "Elizabeth, can you tell us what heteronormative is?" Because I'd be like, nah. And I just typed it in, but then my phone very quickly told me that, you know, they needed to get rid of it here. So heteronormative here says denoting or relating to a worldview that promotes heterosexuality as the normal or preferred sexual orientation. So that's the you know, Webster's standard of what we've all said. But, you know, every time thinking about that word normal and how these days, right now in this season of life, what the hell is normal? Normal doesn't even exist anymore. But well before COVID, you know, if I was in a doctor's office or any sort of professional practitioner where they're giving you a diagnosis or telling you this or telling you that, it's standard procedure for me to say, well, is that normal? Is what I have normal? Is this normal? And I guess it's just, the answer is designed to bring me comfort. So I can leave, like, no matter what it is, your nails aren't right, your teeth aren't straight, your hair's growing gray. Is that normal? And y'all, every single time the person's like, well, And it's not in an effort to, you know, kind of couch a negative answer. It's just that, what is normal? And the comforting thing is never have any of those people said, well, God, no, Elizabeth, that's not normal. You're weird. They're just like, No, but everyone's different. Everyone's different. And that just, again, zeroes in on why my time at First Methodist downtown was so positive for me, is that different was okay. Different was accepted. Different was awesome. And fast forward to now, when our youth group has reunions, which we've had a handful in the past few years, well over 50% of us are gay. And so I'm like, yeah. And did we know that when we were kids? No. Then we had a wide and varied, group and youth group. And I didn't think of it as anything other than where I wanted to be, period.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, normal is a weird word. If you think about, Jesus, he was constantly being accused of not being normal for the day.
Right.
Why didn't he follow the laws like everybody else? Why didn't he say the things that all the other rabbis were teaching? That he kind of always was pushing the norms, and that's always a challenge for the status quo, is anything that is outside of normal. Well, I bring up Jesus specifically because Elizabeth, you earlier kind of made a reference to your spiritual journey is like something like this, and Joe, you talked about your spiritual journey has led you kind of outside the walls of the church, but to something more personal. I wondered if there was more, any of the three of you would want to share sort of about the intersection of your sexual identity and your spirituality. Has there, I don't know, are there definable, discernible ways that God has journeyed with you in sort of your own journey of coming out and self-acceptance?
I would say that my life journey has been a complete confirmation that I am created exactly as God made me. I mean, there's never been a moment, aside from harassment, aside from attacks and people harassing me, never in my life spiritual journey or with God has anything negative happened. So I know it's who I know that's how God created me.
My time at College Park Methodist has absolutely underscored that I am exactly where I need to be. My time at my adult stage of my faith, or second half of life, following the Richard Rohr book, Falling Upward. I think that's the name of the book.
Yeah.
My role as lay leader, my opportunity to lead, going on 2-year Bible study with a motley crew of people, has really underscored that I am doing what I'm meant to be doing. And that I've always, I believe Michael kind of said that he's always been supported. At least I think I heard that he's always been supported. I've never really had a moment in my faith journey where I've gone into a place of worship and really been literally hit with opposition. Now, I have gone to churches where I just felt that I didn't fit in, but no one's come to me and actually put those words in the air. And that is a blessing. When I talk to other people, and I know that there's a whole segment of the counseling community devoted to helping hurt and harmed, cue the Reformation Project, I've never, ever to date been in a place where that has been part of my history. And I think that's why I feel so excited to be an active, sold-out Christian, because I know that my time will come where I'll be able to give that piece of hope to someone who has really been hurt and harmed, and I can pay it forward. I can pay it forward. And the good news is there's more days left in my life. So I have a feeling that my time will come where I also will be hurt and harmed. And perhaps this good, positive energy I'm getting now is going to be kind of a buffer, if you will. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like where this conversation is going. I definitely want to restate, from all of the individuals in the community and the interactions with the people of the church, I've felt nothing but love and acceptance in every way. And that support has been really valuable and really helpful in all areas of my life, knowing that I have that base. But I will say for my actual faith, it's been really confusing trying to deal with having, I still hold a lot of the values that I was raised with. I think that the First United Methodist Church gave me those values and that framework for interpreting, what it means to be a good or a bad person. And it's been really confusing trying to understand who I am, who I was, how I identify, my orientation and my sexual interest in men. How does that, fit together with this whole other framework of values and ethics and ways to live and relate to other people? It's been really confusing for me. And so I guess, you're asking how has it actually impacted my faith? It gives me a bit of resistance, and it's more so in the past. I think that I'm in a different spot now. But definitely when I was fully in denial of even being gay and not understanding myself more clearly, I was just resistant to, accepting, Christianity at its value, and accepting it and bringing it into my life wholeheartedly, and taking, the Bible to be something literal. I've always struggled with, those aspects. And so it has definitely led me on a path that, it's kind of zigging and zagging, like Elizabeth was saying. There's many different chapters and phases of it. But what I've found makes sense to me is just my conversations with God. And I understand the lessons that the text can give us and the values. But I also understand that, that the God that I speak to loves me, and I don't feel like I understand if some people out there, not even the Methodist Church, like the Westboro Baptist Church, they think that, gay people are sinners, that we're all going to go to hell. And so that there's that resistance there to even trying to interact with any part of the faith that might lead me down that dark path and towards a more personal relationship with God. And all of my conversations with God, I'm always humbled, and I've always just feel so full of worth. I'm so I don't know how to explain it, but just grateful that I am loved and filled with the peace and patience and the grace of that relationship with Him.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Well, Elizabeth, you're going to hate this question because you said you're not a terms person. One of the questions I wanted to throw at you all is, I sometimes, very well-meaning Christian folk will say, we accept everybody. We're an accepting church. And there's a difference between acceptance and being affirming. And you got a good thumbs up. Good. I wondered if y'all could articulate better than I can what you hear when somebody says we're accepting versus affirming, or vice versa. What you hear when someone says we're affirming versus accepting? What's the difference, and why does it matter?
I'll say right off the bat, Vance, that's an excellent question. And that's a term that I actually can get. So I was like, okay, woo.
Good.
Stephanie, my wife, is really, she's a licensed mental health counselor. So all the terminology is right up her alley. I would have if it was a call a friend deal, I've been like, Stephanie. Okay, so I get this one. So accepting, I think, was accepting and affirming. Yeah. To me, it's energy. So, there are other churches around that church block right downtown. Well, yes, we accept everyone. Everyone is a child of God. And I'll give you a little segue or a little departure for just 1 second. And it's important to my faith journey. When my mother pulled out of me that I was gay, thankfully it happened before she passed away. That is a blessing I will never quit being thankful for. She said, you know what, I need you to go talk to someone at the church. The church at the time was First Presbyterian downtown. The minister at the time was Howard Ennington. So I said, and this is recorded, and that's fine. I said, Mom, I'm not going to talk to Jesus Christ. And she said, no, you can talk to Dr. Cook, Jim Cook. I said, okay, I can do that. So I set up the meeting, went to go talk to Dr. Cook. Love that man. He sat me down in his office. It was a pretty quick meeting. I said, Dr. Cook, I know why I'm here. And I will tell you that nothing that transpires in this conversation is going to change. I'm still going to be the way I am. And his response was really so genuine and perfect. He said, Elizabeth, all of us are created in God's image, and therefore we're all okay. You're not going to ever be able to be employed by the church or wear a robe. I said, no worries, I don't want to. So a few minutes later, we pretty much said, okay, great. Thank you for the time. Walked out, called my mother and said, Mom, I've done it. Nothing's changed. But I think just the fact that I got validation from a member of the clergy was good enough for her. So there are a lot of churches around who say, we accept you because they know that all of us are children of God. All of us, even my neurotic dog that I'm spending hundreds of dollars to train. He's a child of God. Am I affirmed in every church? No. Is it a situation where my heterosexual brothers and sisters, are they genuinely interested in what's going on in my life? Do they genuinely want to be engaged with my wife? Are they genuinely a part of my experience? If I'm in an affirming church, you better be darn straight they are. I think that's the difference. It's an energy and a genuineness and a putting your money where your mouth is, where the rubber hits the road. That's what it means to me.
Yeah, it's an investment.
Yes, that's the word, investment.
Right. So, like I alluded to this earlier, when I've casually made mention of my partner at that period of time, and the church said, yes, we want to know who this person is. We want to know about your personal life. We want to know. We want to be involved. And they actively, the music ministry of that church, which is wonderful, actively wanted to support me and help me. And I think that's the difference right there. I mean, it's more than just, oh, okay, well, you're that kind of person. I accept that you're that. But when they actually invest in you personally and spiritually, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, good. Joe, anything you want to add to that?
I don't think I can add anything more spectacular than what's already been said.
Yeah.
But I would encourage this church, any church that's looking to do this kind of work. I think that there's like a whole bunch of different touch points where the church kind of intersects with your life and specifically your sexuality. And like, I think that that's where that's the actual place and time that it's most important to be affirming versus accepting. I feel like accepting is kind of like the background level of, just like, am I even safe to walk in these doors? Like, are you going to, have that physical security and be recognized as a real person? That's like, there's those baseline levels. And I think affirming would go beyond that in those specific areas where the church is touching your life in these important times. Like, I specifically remember going to Camp Leesburg and going to like a sexual development kind of weekend. I don't remember, but that was awkward for me, being gay, and I'm sure other people have had, plenty of experiences with it, but that was a trip me and my dad went on together, and we tried to learn everything that we could, but I think that's a really important moment to not just say, okay, yeah, there are gay people, we accept that, but to go beyond that to say, here is what, here's the church's position on you as a homosexual. Here's the information that you need to know for your sexual education, and all of the ways that they're helping heterosexual, people and couples to understand their bodies and what's changing in them and all of that. Like, affirming would be to, use that same, effectiveness to help homosexuals and other non-conforming genders and sexualities.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning Leesburg. I taught at some of those weekends, and and you know, over time came to realize, you know, what we were talking about earlier, heteronormative. You know, those were well-intentioned but heteronormative events. We approached the conversation of sex and sexuality assuming that everyone in the room was heterosexual, and that of course we know, and probably should have known then, that wasn't true. That wasn't the case. So I don't know how to ask this last question, because it's not a question. It's more of a confession and kind of an opening. I recognize that as a 53-year-old heterosexual United Methodist pastor, asking questions about human sexuality, I might not be asking the right questions, as well intentioned as they are. I wonder if there's other questions you think I should be asking you, and especially things that you might want to share with First Church, which you know has played a role in all of your lives. Is there a question I should be asking? Is there something you'd like to share?
I think it should be an open-ended question. Do we love as Christ loved? And I think that kind of says it all. All accepting. We're all made in God's image, who God is. God is not male nor female. God is. And we, as this diverse population, were created in God's image. And so we should love all. And we need to make sure we do that and not create normal. We should not create subsections of population. We should not, you know, it's really a rough road. We have to, you know, it's part of growing up and growing who we are. We have to learn that it's okay to just be vulnerable and to love everyone. And that's apparently a very difficult thing.
Apparently. You know, Vance, I'll say that the thing that is so refreshing, the idea that's so refreshing to me in this season of my life, whether it be an involvement with activities at First Church downtown. I'm part of a spiritual companion group that Margaret Harrod, Susie Harrelson, some of your members are in, or my involvement at College Park Methodist, or my involvement, you know, with the Florida Conference. They see me as Elizabeth Preston-Hughes, Nancy Elizabeth Preston-Hughes, 50-year-old female who's 5 foot 2 inches tall on a good day, meaning I stand straight on good days. When I'm slumping, I'm 5'1". That's how they see me. They're not like, oh, Elizabeth, you're gay. Every time they say, hey, gay one, or hey, gay gal. None of that. I'm Elizabeth. Now, am I gay? Yes, I am. But out of all the things that identify me, that is not number one, nor will it ever be. How refreshing is it that I can be affirmed as Elizabeth, as a believer who's just like this, just like every other person who has, you know, a lungs and a heart and breathes and can feel pain. That is what really means. That's where the peanut butter hits the jelly for me, is that I'm considered just like you are. Because let's get real, folks. I am just like you are. And do I share my life with a female? Yes, I do. But I don't care I don't want you to care any more about that than I care about the fact that you share your life with a male, or you don't share your life at all with anyone, and that's your business. And so that's really that's where my eyes are like, yeah, I like that. That's good. And that also is a difference between accepting and affirming. Yeah. So I appreciate you saying, you know, I don't know, are there questions I should be asking? I'd be like holding a poster saying, your questions are great. You're accepting us as human beings because that's what we all are. I mean, I don't know if this resonates with anyone else in this group, but that's my response to that last question, Vance.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have an additional question for you, but something I wanted to bring up is that this is not a unique problem. Like this is definitely, there's a lot of unique characteristics of, this human sexuality, reconciling all of the diversity of people who are coming into the church and everything like that. But I just, if there's someone out there who is not gay and they can't understand, all the different letters, they don't see it in themselves or their family or anyone around them. I think that it's still a really important lesson to look at how the church is dealing with all people. Even, the church's history with respect to women or with non-white people, or, all of these different layers of, Christianity being used for the wrong reason, and communities of faith being exclusive or demeaning for any reason to anyone, where someone might feel that they're not able to be authentic in themselves for any reason. You could just be dealing with anything that doesn't align with those values and those ethics that we're all trying to do. We're all on this path together. We're all trying to be there and do that. I think this is a really important step to take that the Methodist Church needs to do, just to continue to be relevant. The future is going to be more gay, more lesbian, more non-white than ever before. And God's message needs to remain relevant. And so it's important work that you're doing, but there's also this context of all the other ways that the community and the Christianity, like the theology, is being used in a toxic, unhelpful way with your path, your conversations with God. So I just wanted to put that out there, that this is just one small piece of a bigger thing that needs to go on and keep going on. And thank you for giving us a moment to speak. I really appreciate that.
Well,
I echo that, Vance. Thank you so much.
The thanks is to you all for your stories, for your vulnerability, for your willingness to share, for your willingness to endure Zoom issues and scheduling. I'm thankful. One of the rare privileges I get as a pastor is sometimes I just get to speak on behalf of the church. And so on behalf of First Church, I just want to affirm the three of you for who you are and who you have become, and your faithfulness to your journeys and being authentic. And especially thankful for this time. And I know your journeys have taken you to other spiritual homes, but know that you always have a home at First Church, and
it's still my church home.
That you're loved there. Well, thank you so much for this time, and I know it'll be a blessing to others.
All right.